5 things smart people do differently that most people never learn. Have you ever met someone who seems incredibly smart, but they're not showing off, they're not using big words, and they don't know everything? Yet somehow, people trust them. People ask for their advice. And when problems show up, they stay calm while everyone else is losing their minds. What's their secret? It's not a higher IQ. It's not a perfect memory. And it's definitely not because they were born special. The truth is, smart people think differently. Today, I'm going to show you 5 habits that make ordinary people seem exceptionally intelligent. And if you start practicing even one of these habits, you'll begin to see the world differently. Let's get started. 1. Smart people don't need to win every argument. Most people think being smart means always having the right answer. That's why so many arguments turn into competitions. The goal isn't understanding anymore. The goal becomes winning. But truly smart people do something different. When they hear an opinion they disagree with, they don't immediately attack it. They get curious. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," they ask, "Why do you think that? What led you to that conclusion? Can you tell me more?" That simple shift changes everything. Because when people feel attacked, they stop listening. But when people feel understood, they open up. And here's what's interesting. The smartest people aren't collecting victories. They're collecting information. They know that every person knows something they don't. So instead of trying to prove they're right, they try to learn. And that's one of the fastest ways to become wiser. 2. They see the bigger picture. Imagine you fail an important exam, or you don't get a job you really wanted, or someone rejects you. For many people, that single event becomes their entire identity. I failed. I'm not good enough. I'll never succeed. But smart people zoom out. They understand that one event doesn't define their future. A failed test isn't proof you're stupid. It's feedback. A rejection isn't proof you're worthless. It's information. A bad day isn't a bad life. It's just a bad day. While most people focus on the immediate problem, smart people look for patterns. They ask, "What can I learn from this? What should I do differently next time? What's the lesson hidden inside this setback?" That's why they recover faster, because they don't get trapped in the moment. They focus on the bigger picture. 3. They focus only on what they can control. This habit alone can dramatically reduce stress. Think about how much time people spend worrying. What if people don't like me? What if something goes wrong? What if I fail? What if things don't work out? Most of these worries are about things we can't control. And worrying about things you can't control is like sitting in a rocking chair. You're moving, but you're not getting anywhere. Smart people ask themselves one simple question. Can I do something about this right now? If the answer is yes, they take action. If the answer is no, they stop feeding it their attention. They understand that energy is limited, and instead of wasting it on fear, they invest it in action. That's why they often appear calmer than everyone else. Not because life is easier for them, but because they're focused on what actually matters. 4. They use silence as a superpower. Here's something most people never realize. The smartest person in the room is often the quietest. Why? Because they're listening. Most people are busy thinking about what they're going to say next. Smart people are paying attention. They observe, they process, they think. And when they finally speak, their words carry weight. Have you ever noticed that people who talk non-stop often get ignored? But when someone who rarely speaks suddenly says something, everyone listens. Silence creates value. It shows confidence. It shows self-control. And it gives your brain time to produce better answers. Here's a challenge. The next time someone asks you a question, wait 3 seconds before answering. 3 seconds. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but you'll notice your responses become clearer, calmer, and more thoughtful. And people will start paying closer attention to what you say. 5. They pause instead of reacting. This might be the most important habit of all. Most people live in reaction mode. Someone says something rude, they react. Something goes wrong, they react. A problem appears, they react. Their emotions control their decisions. But smart people create space between the event and their response. When something upsetting happens, they pause. Even if it's only for a few seconds, they ask themselves, what's the best response here? Will this matter a month from now? Am I making this situation better or worse? That pause is powerful because it prevents temporary emotions from creating permanent mistakes. Anyone can react, but it takes intelligence and discipline to respond thoughtfully. And that's often the difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck. Conclusion. So what have we learned? Smart people don't become smart because they know more facts. They become smart because they think differently. They ask questions instead of arguing. They look at the bigger picture instead of panicking. They focus on what they can control. They use silence to their advantage. And they pause before reacting. The best part? None of these habits require talent. You don't need a genius-level IQ. You don't need a fancy degree. And you don't need to be born gifted. You just need practice. So here's my challenge for you. Pick one of these 5 habits and commit to using it for the next 7 days. Just one. Then pay attention to what changes. You might be surprised how differently people respond to you and how differently you respond to life. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications for more videos on psychology, self-improvement, and personal growth. And before you leave, tell me in the comments, which of these 5 habits do you think is the hardest to master, and why? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.